the recorder. It'll be late. We'll have some editing to do. And if you've had spiritual experience with this information, please feel free to share. Keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5 minute mark, you will hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, big book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, i.e. a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And how we arrived at this point tonight? Folks, we're starting the book study all over again, and we are thrilled that you are with us. We are starting at the very beginning of the book. This is moving into we're in our 5th year, but we are moving into our 4th season of doing it just this way. So as we go through the questions tonight, some of you might be a little confused and you might be looking for the questions in your big book. You won't have the questions. You will only have the answers, and the answers will come from what gets read tonight. So I hope you will enjoy us on the journey, and for the next 96 weeks we're going to do this exactly the way that we do it tonight. And if you want to raise your hand and share or be one of the question readers, answer readers, and you're not sure what to do, all you got to do is follow along in the book, and the next question will be asked in order, and you just read the next line. It's really quite simple. So you want to read that last part, Terry, and we'll get started with this.
Have 12 raised if you would or answer please, that the first hour and a half is recorded so we can put it on our website.
Linda, we're starting
After
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Terry. I'm sorry.
No,
And
we have to do.
Terry, listen to me for a second. You're going to have to lean towards your microphone because you're breaking up a little bit. Linda, we're going to be starting at the beginning of the book, at the preface tonight. Okay? I don't have time to answer those questions in chat. I'm sorry. So I'm going to pull up the introduction. You guys don't have this information, but you will. Who's got a hot mic? Okay, you do, Terry. That's okay. You guys don't have this information. We do. That's why we do it in screen share for you. And Terry is going to read this for us tonight. This is the introduction. Go ahead, Terry.
I don't have it up yet.
Whoops, you're right. It's because I didn't share it yet. Sorry. Lots of distractions tonight. 1 second before you do, let me get the screens moved around again. Okay, now we're good.
Okay, that looks good. Okay. The Primary Purpose Group Big Book Study Guide. A study of the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous. Preface. There is evidence that alcoholism has been around since the beginning of recorded history. Noah gave good signs of possibly having a problem with alcohol after the Great Flood. He reportedly drank of the wine and passed out naked in his tent. But only twice in the history of mankind has there been a group of serious drinkers who figured a way to stay physically sober.
Let me advance the page for you.
The first of these were the Washingtonians. They stayed away from drink by having meetings and telling their stories. They had no program to live by, nor did they have a set of guidelines for the conduct of their fellowship. As a result of these deficiencies, they lasted only a very short time. The lifespan of that fellowship was approximately 10 years, from 1840 to somewhere around 1850. The other group of alcoholics successful in sobriety is known as Alcoholics Anonymous. By God's grace and mercy, the founders of this fellowship were given a very practical program of action which assures permanent emotional sobriety. They also learned, through success and failure, how to preserve the fellowship, which is vital to those suffering alcoholics not yet reached. Our founders learned from mistakes of the Washingtonians and the alcoholics who had died, ignoring the mistakes of others who had failed. This book, Alcoholics Anonymous, was written to provide each of us with an opportunity to learn how to live and enjoy life, and how we may protect the future of this fellowship. In this textbook for permanent sobriety, we find the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which assure a method of escaping death by drinking or permanent insanity for chronic alcoholics. We are also given the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, which assure the unity, survival, and growth of the fellowship, so necessary for most alcoholics seeking a solution for their problems. Forward to the study guide. The purpose of the study guide is to enable the student to understand the information the authors of the book Alcoholics Anonymous intended to impart to each of us based on their experience and knowledge of alcoholism and their program of recovery. It can be used by an individual or by a group. This guide is intended to examine the content of virtually every sentence in the basic text of the Big Book. The beginning of the paragraph is identified by the letter P preceding the number of the first question of that paragraph. Some sentences contain more than one important piece of information that we will want to consider. To indicate these sentences, the questions will be indented with the number of the question followed by the lowercase letter. Okay, the number of the question is repeated to indicate that we are still on that one sentence.
We need to edit
The study begins with a dust jacket. The dust jacket is reversible. On one side is the title of the book and the other side is blank, so persons wishing to maintain their anonymity can simply turn it over and recover the book in plain white paper. The titled side also tells us what book Alcoholics Anonymous is to the members of Alcoholics Anonymous Fellowship. In the lower right-hand corner it reads, this is the third edition of the Big Book, the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous. A similar statement is made in the middle of the fourth edition dust cover. The basic text for any subject contains the experience and knowledge of the author so that the student can establish a foundation of understanding in and of the subject. The authors of the basic textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous, present their experience and knowledge of the problem, alcoholism, the solution, God, as we understand Him, and the practical program of action they followed that will produce recovery from alcoholism. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They did such a perfect job that members of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous have been unable to improve unable to improve the effectiveness of this book in the second and third editions. A remarkable truth considering that the first principal author had only 4 years of sobriety. The second principal author had 3.5 years. The rest of the authors had even less. This book also contains the 12 traditions, so very vital to the survival of the fellowship. So long as our individual groups stay within the boundaries of the 12 traditions, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous will flourish. Since the students and practitioners of this textbook rarely, if ever, return to drinking, its true authorship must have been derived from a higher power. It has proved to provide a solution to all our problems. This fact is demonstrated by the large number of fellowships that have borrowed and adapted our 12-step and 12 traditions to find a solution to their particular problems which have nothing to do with drinking. It isn't enough just to have faith. We must also do good works to prove we have faith. Faith that doesn't show itself by good works is no faith at all. It's dead and useless. This book provides clear-cut directions on what we must do to have that faith. It does not fail. Since Bill W. was so precise in the use of the English language in his authorship of this book, it is a good idea to keep a dictionary nearby. For example, the real problem of the chronic alcoholism is the insidious insanity that leads to his first drink. And according to Webster, circa 1936, insidious, awaiting a chance to ensnare. Ensnare, to lure, entice, or capture. Insanity, state of being insane, unsoundness of mind, derangement of mind, especially without recognition of one's illness. Acknowledgements. Credit for this study guide must begin with Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Their determination to stay sober led them to search for and go to alcoholics who were suffering from alcoholism. From their efforts and the efforts of those they had helped came the first 100 sober men and women. From that fellowship came a program which would be known as Alcoholics Anonymous. Because of the two Arkansas travelers, Joe McHugh and Charlie P., and their Big Book Comes Alive meetings and their 4-day Big Book seminars in which they shared their knowledge and experience of our program, came our first understanding of the material and the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous. This created a thirst for the even greater knowledge of the vital information contained in the Big Book. This desire gave birth to the primary purpose group of Alcoholics Anonymous of Dallas, Texas in January 1988. So to all the present and past members of this group goes thanks for their interest and participation. We must also give thanks to a great lady, Londa, who took time from her job and family to correct some errors that were made by the alcoholics who prepared the study guide. But most of all, we give our thanks to our Heavenly Father for revealing to the first 100 the secret of this program, which promises alcoholics and many others how to have a primary purpose and learn how to enjoy a life that is happy, joyous, and free.
Thank you so much, Terry. And so now you folks know what the purpose of this book study is. And I'm going to show you something real quick, because in some of the reading Terry talked about numbered and lettered pages. We no longer do it that way. What we have done is we have changed it to make it more user-friendly for us. So what we do is we took and copied and pasted all of the questions out of the study guide, and then we pasted the answers from the Big Book directly under it. in order to give us more rhythm and flow to the meeting, because it was prior to that I had to look at the study guide, ask the question, and then look at the big book to make sure that the answer was right. So now art is, oh, and by the way, all of that and the hunger and birth, I found this on a podcast, and it gave me a hunger for deeper knowledge of this practice and this study, and that's how this group was born, out of that same idea. So I hope you will stick with us on our journey, folks, and come back every week. And Art is going to come in and read tonight's study portion.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And this is the preface. This is the fourth edition of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. The third edition, which came off press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats. Because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume, describing the AA recovery program, has been left largely untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. The section called "The Doctor's Opinion" has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. The second printing of the first edition added the appendix, Spiritual Experience. In the second edition, the appendices on AA tradition, the medical view and religious view of AA, the Lasker Award, and information on how to contact AA were added, and the appendix on the Alcoholic Foundation was discontinued. But the chief change was in the selection of personal stories, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and the other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. They were edited three were edited, and one of these was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are used now. In the third edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 of the stories in Part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the second edition. 8 new stories were added. In Part 3, They Lost Nearly All. 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. The 4th edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. 1 new story has been added to Part 1. and 2 that originally appeared in Part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in Part 2 have been carried over, 11 new ones have been added, and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed in addition to the 2 that were transferred to Part 1. All changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA members found nicknames to this volume, have had some purpose to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more importantly, yes, I've felt like that. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too.
Thank you, Art. And my apologies, folks. I forgot to mention this. We need about 5 or 6 hands raised for those of you who would like to answer the questions back. And we're doing this in 2 parts tonight. We're doing the preface first, and then we are doing the forward to the first edition. So I got 2 hands. I got Kenny and Linda and Lisa. Could use a couple of more hands for anybody willing, and William, D-A. And of course I just had a pickle drop in person, Trish, so Trish is going to take a question. Okay, let me get all the names down. S-A, William, D-O-N-A-L-D, S-T-E-F, and Trish. And so we're going to answer the questions to everything that Art just read, and then we're going to move on to the forward to the first edition. Terry will also be coming in with some comments tonight. So we are going to kick it off with Kenny. All of you who are answering questions will need to unmute, please.
Where are we reading from again?
The preface in the front of the book, page XI.
This is the 4th edition, that one?
4th edition. The 4th edition is the only book of Alcoholics Anonymous that has a preface. So, Kenny, we're going to kick it off with you. What edition is this one?
This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you. Linda, 2-part question. A, when was it first published? And B, how many copies went into circulation between the 1st and 2nd editions? You're muted, Linda.
The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation.
Thank you. Lisa, 2-part question. When was the 2nd edition published, and how many copies of the 2nd edition were sold and distributed?
The 2nd edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies.
Thank you. And Sir William, 2-part question. A, when was the 3rd edition published? And B, how many copies went into circulation?
3rd edition, which came off press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats.
I have a comment. All formats here refers to the worldwide circulation, including printings in several languages.
Thank you, Terry. And Donald, coming to you. A 3-part question. What has this book become? B, why? And C, has there been a desire to make any changes in it?
Well,
Because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such a large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recover, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it.
Thank you. And Steph, coming to you. Have there been any significant changes in the first 164 pages?
Therefore, the first portion of this volume, describing the AA recovery program, has been left untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions.
Thank you. And Trish, a two-part question. What has been kept intact? And B, Dr. Silkworth was what to our society?
The section called "The Doctor's Opinion" has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor.
Thank you. And Kenny, what was added to the second printing of the first edition? Read to the semicolon, please.
The second printing of the first edition added the appendix and the
Spiritual
Okay.
experience.
experience.
Yeah.
I have another comment. The second printing of the first edition of our book was printed in 1941. At that time, Appendix 2, the spiritual experience, was added.
Thank you. And Linda, coming along to you. Your question is, what were the three things added in the second edition?
Where are you at? Because I'm lost. 18. Excuse me? What paragraph?
It starts with the words "in the second edition," the appendices.
Go to the next person, please. I don't want to hold any.
Lisa, can you pick that question up? What were the three things added to the second edition?
In the second edition, the appendices on AA tradition, the medical view and religious view of AA, the Lasker Award, and information on how to contact AA were added. And the appendix on the Alcoholic Foundation was discontinued.
Hey, I have a comment. In other printings of the big book, this section read, the second edition added the appendices, the 12 traditions, and the directions for getting in touch with AA. While the first 164 pages have been left largely untouched, it does not mean there may not be some differences in the preface and forwards.
Thank you. William, coming to you, sir. Two-part question. What was the chief change in the second edition? And B, why were these changes made?
What are the chief changes was in the second section of the personal story, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship role. Real story?
Nope. Nope. Stop right there. And could everybody else hold their comments and their voices down when someone else is speaking, please? Because the mic picks it up and it confuses people. Donald, coming to you. What else is said about the second edition? Read the rest of the paragraph.
I was doing something else and stuff.
Bill's story. Okay, moving on. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Trish, what else was said in the second, or I'm sorry, Stephanie. What else was said about the second edition? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited, and one of these was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written with new titles,
30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are used now.
Thank you. Trish, coming to you. Top of page XII. What part of the big book was left unchanged in the 3rd tradition?
In the 3rd edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to the top, my friend. What changes were made? 2 sentences, please.
9 of the stories in part 2, they had stopped in time, was carried over from the 2nd edition. 8 new stories were added.
Keep going, a little more.
In part 3, they lost nearly all. 8 stories was retained. 5 new ones were added.
Thank you. Linda, a 2-part question for you. A, what has been added to the 4th edition? And B, what has been revised?
The 4th edition includes the 12 concepts for world services and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows.
Thank you. Lisa, how have the story sections been revised? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
1 new story has been added to Part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in Part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in Part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added, and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed, in addition to the 2 that were transferred to Part 1.
Thank you. William, 3-part question. A, what is the nickname for the basic text Alcoholics Anonymous? B, what changes have been made in the big book? And C, hopefully to accomplish what? It's a very long sentence.
All changes made over the years in the big book. AA members found nicknames for this format have had the same purpose to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately and thereby to reach more alcoholics.
Thank you. And Donald, coming to you. What is our hope for a person with a drinking problem as he reads this book?
If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yes, I felt that way. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too.
Thank you. Okay, everybody please keep your hands up. We're going to move into the forward to the 1st edition. You don't have to mute yourself, but please, no ordering Chinese food while the reading is going on, if you can help it. Art's going to come in and read the forward to the 1st edition, and when we come back, we will be starting the questions off with Stephanie. So, Art, welcome, sir.
Okay, this is the forward to the 1st edition. This is the forward as it appeared in the 1st printing of the 1st edition in 1939. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For then, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. It is important that we remain anonymous Because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. Being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event. We would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Very earnestly we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped. We are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. There are no fees or dues whatever. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. We are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone. We simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted. We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly from those who have commenced work with other alcoholics. We should like to be helpful to such cases. Inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcome. Signed, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you so much, Art, and thank you so much for your service tonight. And now, folks, we are going to go right back to the beginning, to the forward, to the first edition, and we are going to ask the questions again. And Stephanie, we are going to kick it off with you with a 3-part question right out of the gate. A, who authored this book? B, how many were there? And C, what happened to them?
We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body.
Thank you. And Trish, why did they go to the trouble to write this book?
To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book.
Kenny, coming back to you, sir. If we have a drinking problem and study this book, what else will we need?
For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary.
Thank you. Linda, what do we think can be accomplished by reading this book?
We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic.
Thank you. Lisa, what is it that many do not comprehend?
Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person.
Thank you. William, do we believe this book is for alcoholics only?
And besides, we are sure that our way of living has an advantage for all.
Thank you. Donald, why was it important for the authors of this book to remain anonymous?
It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication.
Thank you. And Steph, were the authors of this book bums?
Being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event.
Thank you. And Trish, what is our alcoholic work?
We would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation.
Thank you. Kenny, back to you, sir. 2-part question. What are we told to do if we write or speak publicly? And B, what are we told to identify ourselves as what?
When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellows to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you. Linda, are we serious about anonymity at the level of press?
Very earnestly we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped.
Thank you. And Lisa, are we an organization?
We are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word.
Thank you. William, how much does it cost for membership in AA?
There are no fees or dues whatsoever.
Thank you. Donald, what is the only requirement for membership?
The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking.
Thank you. Steph, two-part question. A, with whom are we affiliated? And B, who or what are we against?
We are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone.
Thank you. And Trish, what is our simple wish?
We simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you. For those who read this book, who do we want to hear from?
We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly from those who have commenced work with other alcoholics.
Thank you. And Linda, what is it we really want to do?
We should like to be helpful to such cases.
Okay, thank you. And Lisa, final question of the night. Who else would we like to hear from?
Inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcomed. Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you so much, folks. Thanks for bearing with us through that. And please, I would ask your forgiveness in my shortcomings of forgetting to do a couple of things tonight. It's there's a lot of moving parts going on tonight. Everybody can remute themselves and lower their hands, and then we will take a show of hands for those who would like to make comments, have questions, share observations, share experience, share spiritual experience. We'd love to hear from you. We got time left. Come on in, Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. I like the preface because it gives a history of it. It gives you information about numbers. It talks about, when this was published, the second edition, the third edition, and it talks about how many were circulated, and talks about the Dr. Bob's opinion. It says AA program recovery has been left untouched in the course of the revisions. So the program still stays the same, even though we keep revising the big book. Second, third, and fourth edition, maybe a fifth edition, because they take some of the stories out, and I know they add new stories too. So they said it was written in 1939 by the late Dr. Silkworth, William D. Silkworth, and our society's great medical benefactor. Then they tell you about the second edition and added the appendices, the 12 traditions. Gives a lot of history, tells you about the fellowship growth. Put it this way, they said, but the chief change was in the section of personal stories. And they talk about Bill's story, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. I like Dr. Bob's Nightmare. I like that. In my home group, we do from 1 to 100, 164 pages in the book. But I'm supposed to read that last one, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. It goes a little bit over, that 167 pages. And a lot of people can really identify. They can really identify with him and his beer experiment, And then I like, then they talk more about the pioneers of AA. It talks about the part 1 and 2 that appeared and the sections that were added. It says the big book AA members found nicknames for the volume. I'm not sure, but I don't know if it was a big book. I think there wasn't that much women in AA. I think it was 100 men the name was. Then they changed it later on. But it's a lot of history in here. So if somebody wants to get into an argument or a debate, I just tell them, listen, just read the first forward. Remember, someone had told me that when I first came around, and I'm arguing about something I didn't even know anything about, and they were like, no, 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 you came from the other fellowship. Now this is AA. This is how we do things. And they were like, if you read the first, if you read those first forwarded, and then I like this one, and it shows Dr. Bob's opinion, and that's way long before page 1. People say, oh, I read from, we read the first from 1 to 167. Before that, then there's the doctor's opinion, and that really is an opinion of, he's making an account and assessment of alcoholics. And then there's some AA in it, as far as with our program. And really, the doctor's opinion to me, which I know we didn't do, but it's after the forwards, but if you read it, it tells you that there's a solution, and the people in it have confirmed that there's a solution. So there's a message in everything, in every chapter, and this more or less is telling you about how this big book has evolved, how it has came of age, and how this was added, that was taken out, and why. They give you the reasons why. They're not just saying, well, this happened, well, that happened. There's a reason why, because as AA grew, when they first started off, they didn't have all the steps. They only had a couple of steps. But as time went on, more steps were added. And as AA became bigger and got, ended up with so much business aspect, the program had to be protected, so traditions had to come about. The program would have fell apart if it wasn't for the traditions, and the traditions were developed through trial and error. Believe me, I remember there's a meeting, and it's called the Al-Anon House. It has closed, but it was one of the oldest meetings in Manhattan in New York. The bill did not want to have business meetings, but you can look and see there's certain things from back all the way 1930. The old safe that they had, the chair, the desk, and there's a gavel, and then there's a baseball bat, and they used the baseball bat for the group conscious. I was like, what? They said, yeah, that was the group conscious, the baseball bat. And that was back then. We don't do that now, but that's how it evolved. And now we have people that go into rehabs and this and that, or if they're getting in trouble with their job, that's how they get referred to AA. Or if you see a friend, oh, so-and-so needs help or this or that. But back then, they would actually go out in the street, and they would grab alcoholics that were really laying in the grill, and in the grills and in the bar rooms. That's how they really recruited people. Things have changed now, but even now, you're still gonna, if you see someone sitting on the train, they look like they really, they really had enough. You would sit there and you would talk to them. I have. Remember this guy, he looked hungry, so I gave him a sandwich. I started talking to him, and all I smelled was liquor. And I told him, I said, you can do things, I said, without being drunk, and you can live your life without drinking. I said, you're so young. I told him that. I said, you're so young. I said, there's a way. There's a way. And he asked me, he said, where am I going to go? I'm homeless. I said, you can walk into the emergency room, and you can tell them that you have a problem with alcohol, and, you feel like you're going to hurt yourself. And he looked at me strange, like he didn't know. I said, there's a place you can go. I said, and from there, that's where it all starts. And I hope he did, I planted the seed, so I hope he did go get the help he needed. But I like the prefaces. I cannot speak today, but the first part, because it gives a lot of history about AA and how it evolved. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. And Georgina, you had your hand up and you dropped it. Would you like to come in and share?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Georgina, and I'm an alcoholic. And as the first time going through the book from beginning to end, I could just picture 100 men just sitting around and trying to pick and choose what would help other alcoholics, and for me that moved me, like just to picture that and them making those decisions over and over again, and the group conscience and just everybody agreeing on all the stories and how it helps. It's helping me, so I just wanted to point that out, and just my experience of going through the book for the first time from beginning to end, and just picturing, from the beginning, and just picturing that gives me so much hope, that a bunch of alcoholics can sit around and, make those type of decisions to help others. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. Glad you're here and hope you'll join us for all 96 weeks. Pickle Chips, thank you. You did a great job tonight. Come on in.
Thank you. It's a little tough reading those pages. Anyway, I'm Pickle Chip, a recovered alcoholic. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Brian. 1 year's a big one. So proud of you. And Trish, I'm glad you made it safely there. It's good to see your face in the background. And Xavier, I missed you, and I was just thinking about you today. It's kind of like my iPhone was listening again, even though I didn't say your name out loud. It's always weird how that works. So anyway, what I wanted to share about is those stories back of the book. I know we don't cover them in this particular meeting, but I have been to meetings where they pick a story or two to read after the first 164 pages. And I just want to share a story. Back when I was pretty new, I wasn't even new. I had probably about 4 years sober, but I experienced my first sober breakup. And it was very emotional, very painful, and I was really, really struggling because in the past I always used alcohol to numb my pain. And this was a big one. So a gal at one of my meetings invited me over, and she sat me down in her living room in this big comfy chair. She brought me an ashtray because I was a smoker at the time. She brought me some iced tea or lemonade or some cold, refreshing, non-alcoholic beverage, and she sat down by my feet and read me a story out of the first edition. And it was so powerful and so relevant to what I was feeling. And it did exactly what this talked about, is it made me feel like somebody else has been through this too. And it helped me so much. And I have not ever had the opportunity to do that to someone, to return that favor, because I really kind of forgot about it until we read this once a year or so. And then I remember that. But it's something that I would like to pass on to somebody else. Because this lady has since passed away, but I'll never forget Choo Choo Peggy and what she did for me. Just reading a story out of the back of the big book. And I've heard, too, that they're great nighttime, bedtime stories, because they're short, they're relevant to us as alcoholics, and they're timeless. Just some of those stories have been in there for, decades. So anyway, that's all I have to share. Thanks for letting me be of service tonight.
Thank you, Terry. William, come on in.
Good evening, everybody. My name is William Alcoholic. And I'm glad you're safe, Chris. Whenever you was giving those hints, my picture, I've been out through Tennessee, the Blue Ridge Mountains and stuff. And whenever you let go of the steering wheel and give those signs, I said, oh, Chris, not up in Tennessee and all the mountains and stuff. I'm glad to see you made it to Jamie House, Well, one thing, whenever you start reading about the history, the preface and all that, just give me time to reflect. And my mind sort of takes me back to 1939 when it was writing the big book, The 100 Men and Women, to a mighty man from Connecticut. She was part of it. And what time and what they was going through at that time, and they didn't have no internet, they didn't have what we have today, and definitely they didn't have no Zoom, you know what I mean? So, so it sort of gave me that, and I realized what Bill said. The main purpose of this book is to help you be sober, And then he said, though you may be one person with this book in your hand, you can stay sober, but look for somebody else. And whenever they did that, they put the stories in the back. And as we was reading it, it was talking about as the society grew, how the stories began to change to reflect other people who was coming in into the but the recovery part stayed intact. The recovery is still the same. The spiritual part stayed intact. So it gave me a time to think about the time when they did that, and probably how it's so tight today. No matter what happened, whether and the businessmen, how they were trying to protect themselves with the anonymity back in those days, and it's true today, And that's not for me to give alcoholism, give myself a black eye. For me not to give AA a black eye, because it works. It definitely works, I'm sober today because of that. And a lot of the stuff they were saying, I don't think I could comprehend. They was talking about an earnest desire to say, I didn't know what was wrong with me until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and began to read, go to big book studies, hear other people share, and then I began to put the things together. Okay, I think I belong here. I know I belong here today, And as the old question you were saying about these things will come into your head, the question that you would say to yourself, So in the beginning, I didn't think I belonged here. I thought other things in my life were more important for me to be doing it instead of coming to AA meetings a day at a time. But I'm grateful somehow nobody never kicked me out. Nobody never told me I couldn't come back. Because I struggled in the beginning. They just told me keep coming. And what the key thing that helped me here was the unconditional love from the people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Some I liked, some I didn't like. But you know what? They showed me love, and I learned how to love them back because he talked about the affliction. They used affliction back in them days, about the sick alcoholic. Today I can say I was a sick alcoholic, and I'm not at the same stage when it was a place where I was when I came in here. I got a little bit better, just enough to keep me coming. Just enough to keep me coming. Because if I had got it all at one time, I don't think I'd be here today. But that's just the way I was, I have to be, it had to be my recovery was slow and very consistent for me to continue to stay here, and definitely to read about it, to see the public, how they put this PR book together to cover all bases, so to be there for me. Okay, to be there for me. And as I stay here, I want to do the same thing for the next 60 something alcoholic, whatever I could do. And that's not only for me. I think it all get because I don't do it by myself. I don't do it by it's a we fellas. So I remember Oprah saying something like this, and it made a lot of sense to me. And everybody was saying, Oprah, what can I help you? How can I do? She was talking about building wells and houses and apples. She said, just do what you can do. And that's what it does. Whether it is answering the telephone, making the coffee, giving a couple of dollars to the entities, the infrastructure of Alcoholics Anonymous, it'll still work. It'll be here for the people that come behind it, I love reading this, you know what I mean? I love going through this part of it because I love history. So thank you.
Thank you, William. And Art, come on in, sir. Thank you for your service in reading tonight as well.
Hey, my name is Art. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I just want to be real brief here tonight and recount an experience that I had. I was had the privilege of attending the international convention when it was held in Montreal, Canada. And at that convention, the woman who was Bill Wilson's secretary and did all of the took the dictation and anyway, she was presented with a book that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was the 1 million, or maybe it was the 10 million copy of the big book. And when I was reading those statistics today, that reminded me of that presentation at that international convention that was very powerful. Here's the lady who did the transcription of the book, and she was presented with that book. And I was thinking with the 1 millionth copy, but in 1980 it probably was the 10 million. Anyway, that was my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Xavier, good to see you, brother. Come on in.
Good evening, Xavier Alcoholic. Glad to be here. I'm joined by my 4-year-old son. Yeah, just wanted to say a quick hello. Happy to be back, and glad I'm starting in the beginning of this wonderful journey again. Was it 94 weeks, if I remember correctly? And yeah, just beginning of the first and second editions. It's always fun to see, how the history of this program, how like something I would consider a miracle, came into being, and then how it continued to grow and manifest into something greater and greater, and the growth of the program itself, the people in the program, just sharing their experience, strength, and hope as they created new editions, and yeah, that's all I got. So super stoked to be here. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Xavier. And here's what you don't know. The dirty little secret that we kept from you all this time. We turned it from 94 weeks into 96 weeks. Oh my goodness. Come on in, Scuba Pickle.
Yeah, it's good to be here with everybody. It's great. It's great to learn about the history of AA in the early years. There's so much that you can gain and from it. It didn't take them long to add the spiritual experience to the book. I think between the first and second writing of the first edition, they put a spiritual experience into the book, and because it's so vital, and they realized how vital it was. I remember early in my sobriety, I was going to a men's conference, and it was a spiritual retreat in Georgia, and the people that were putting it on were hardcore AA people. I didn't know a whole lot about them, but I found out a lot about them later, because the members of their group, I could be a member of their group. I mean, I qualify. All their members come out of jail or prison. That you have to have spent significant time in jail and prison to be part of the group. Now, it's not because they're trying to be inclusive. It's just that their type of helping people are very. It's a very specific type of people that they help, and the way they do it, it doesn't work for a lot of people. I was in one of their
in one of their meetings, and they have what is called a hot seat, and you know, they say that it was from the first 100 people, because the first 100 people are the very beginnings of AA. You know, they knew nothing about individual sponsorship. Pretty much everybody kind of sponsored everybody. You know, at the very first of AA, everybody, you know, took care of each other, you know, at the beginnings of this AA. And so, and that's how they have, how early on they do their sponsorship, is they put somebody wanting to go to their meeting into this hot seat, and they tell their story, and they tell, you know, what they, you know, they began to say, and the whole group votes whether or not they're BSing or not. You know, are they telling the truth, or are they just trying to say what we think that we want to hear and stuff? I mean, they actually, you know, call people out on this kind of stuff. You know, you need to get humble. You need to really get, you know, they call people under the carpet and said, you need to read the book again. You need to read this again. You're really not getting what this program is all about. You want to get serious, you come back and we'll listen. Otherwise, you're wasting our time. And, you know, and that doesn't work, you know, everybody. But, you know, the people, you know, that came out of, in the circumstances that they all come out of, it seems to work, man. They have a lot of people to get sober and everything, but it's that sponsorship of just being honest and whatever. Now, I don't project that that's how we should sponsor, because you know, I think we drive a lot of people out of our things, and I'm a very compassionate man. I needed compassion when I came into these rooms. So that's not what I'm saying. You know, I was, you know, I was in a meeting the other day that, you know, we have to be somewhat you know, we have to be inclusive. We can't be exclusive. We can't, you know, I've been in a lot of meetings that will say, you can't talk about, you know, JC, you know, in our meetings. And you know, I'm not prorating that, but I don't think that hurts a lot of people early on in AA, because, you know, everybody has a little problem with spirituality anyway. They're still trying to find their higher power anyway. You know, everything is going on, especially early on. But I was in this meeting, and they started the meeting off and said, we've had a group conscience, and if you don't believe in, you know, this higher power, and if you know, then there's the door, and that's okay, because that, as far as this meeting is concerned, that's the higher power that we talk about in this meeting, and it was an AA meeting. I had to check the door and make sure where I was, you know. But you know, it's their meeting. They had a good conscience, and they're autonomous. may never go back to that meeting ever again, and in my lifetime. I was just visiting. I don't think I've ever been to it before, but that's okay. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. Me, primary purpose is, in my book, each group has but one primary purpose, and that is to help the suffering alcoholic. And that's what the first and second, that's what the early alcoholic believed, and that's why they put these books out, is to help as many alcoholics as they possibly could to get sober. And I'm so thankful that they put this book out and made it for everybody to get sober. That's all.
Thanks, Larry. Gandalf, come on in.
Good evening, everyone. Donald Alcoholic. It doesn't matter how many times, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've read the forewords and the preface and stuff like that. But every time I read something over and over again, it's like I can still find something new. And the appreciation of some of these words, I think these guys were geniuses and stuff, because in the second paragraph to the forward to the first edition, it's a legal thing and stuff that I never realized before. It says it is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. And I got a new understanding about that stuff, realizing, that how many people would take these guys to court because it doesn't work. They tell us, well, if we do this, we do that and stuff, but yet we still go out and drink, But the thing is, is that if you earnestly try to do it, then you will succeed. And so there's a couple of other things in here and stuff that, and like that last line that I read, from the preface, is the most important. I believe this program can work for me too, and it has for over 10 years now. God bless you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for your service. All right. Hi, family. My name's Jamie. I'm a grateful, recovered alcoholic. And get ready for the hackles on the back of your neck to be raised. First off, it's important to know what our history is, because if we don't know our history, it's liable to become our future. Why did the Jews write about the Holocaust and have remembrance about the Holocaust and talk about it? Because they're afraid if they don't, it will come back, it will happen again. Why do we alcoholics write about alcoholism, talk about alcoholism, read about alcoholism? Because we are afraid that if we don't, it will come back. So this is a piece of history. The fourth edition is the only edition that has a preface. When they print a fifth edition, it will have a new preface. But the first three editions don't have a preface. Okay? And so one of the things I want to focus on here is where it says, has the first 164 pages have remained largely unchanged. Semi-accurate. If you take a first edition, a second edition, a third edition, and a fourth edition, and all open them up to the same page and read them word for word, punctuation for punctuation, from the first edition to the fourth edition, there have been 401 changes in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. But General Service saved their butts by using the term largely left unchanged. Okay, that's how they get to that. So, some of the changes are stylistic changes and punctuation adjustments, as well as more significant alterations to the text itself. So unless you sit down and read that, find that out and read those additions to one another, you will never know. Now, some of this has been done with the approval of group conscience. Much of it has not. Why is that significant? Because if you are a home group member of a group of Alcoholics Anonymous in the service structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, you are the boss, not New York. A GSR of a group is the servant to the group. The DCM of the district is the servant to the district. And both of those individuals carry the voice of the groups in the district to assemblies, and the delegate is the servant of the assembly of your area. And he carries the voice of all of those groups to the General Service Conference to represent Alcoholics Anonymous in his area. That's important. So if you're part of a group conscience that likes to throw chairs and coffee cups around and call one another colorful names, where's God in your group conscience? Okay, Larry's absolutely right, and even though it really has nothing to do with what we read tonight, I'm gonna touch on it. Yes, that group can say, this is who we want the higher power to be in this group because of tradition 4. However, the problem with that is it happens to be in conflict with step 3. And the appropriate thing to do, if I were attending that meeting, would say, you guys are absolutely right. You can do whatever you want according to your own group's autonomy, but you're in violation of step 3 when you do that, because it's the individual's choice of a higher power. And if you won't allow an individual to have that higher powers of their choice, not only you're in violation of the 3rd step, but you're also in violation of tradition 3, because the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. Those traditions are spiritual tools for the group to survive. And that's the way groups become exclusive rather than inclusive. And while our fellowship will always change because of societal changes, okay, I don't care if you're white, black, green, red, purple, or blue, man, woman, or child. I don't give a damn about your sexuality. All of those things are alcoholics, and not one of those things is what makes me an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic because when I pick up the first drink, somewhere between the first one and the second one, the phenomenon of craving kicks in, and I can't stop. And if you're an alcoholic and you're in this room tonight, no matter what your background is, I love you and I'm glad you're here. And I'm here to help you. Those other issues are just issues we can learn how to work on, but they're not what makes me an alcoholic. And we divert ourselves from our primary purpose when we start getting into that. So, moving along. Sorry. And I don't mean that to sound like a rant, but it's true. we bring so much outside, I don't generally swear in this meeting, but bullshit to the tables that we forget to carry the message of the heart and the language of the heart, because we're so wrapped up in our own heads. And I'm not a storyteller about other people. I want to stick to the literature. That's me. That's what I'm supposed to do. All of that being said, that's about the first. That's about the changes in the big book, and it's something to be aware of, because we say, "Oh, there haven't been any changes to the big book," and when we say that, it's a lie. We have to acknowledge, and if you don't believe me, go to the Beyond Belief Society. There's a YouTube, look and research the 401 changes in the big book. There's a guy who does an hour-and-a-half presentation on it on YouTube. That being said, moving along. Silkworth, our great medical benefactor. Silkworth still understood alcoholism better than modern medicine does today. Sure, modern medicine today knows some really cool things, like how the neurons fire in my brain when I ingest alcohol. I don't need to know that. I need to know why I can't put down a drink or stop picking one up. So Silkworth tells us in the doctor's opinion, and we're not there yet, that I've got a threefold disease: spiritual in malady, mental in obsession, and physical in allergy that sets on the phenomenon of craving. I'm going to move on to the forward to the first edition. I love that it shows us the changes and the growth in the fellowship. And if anybody feels that they're being excluded from Alcoholics Anonymous, are you sure it's Alcoholics Anonymous excluding you? Or is it maybe that we're just sticking to the literature and what we're supposed to do? Carry the message. Sponsorship was mentioned. We're a long way from the study on sponsorship, but you know what? If you want to know about sponsorship, two things. Read the chapter Working with Others and the pamphlet Questions and Answers on Sponsorship. And read both sections. It will give you good guidelines. Because two things. If you're sponsoring yourself, you got a damn fool for a sponsor. And if your sponsor tells you you got to do this, tell me where it says that in the book, because there is no place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous where I have found where it tells me I get to tell you gotta. It tells me that I share my own experience. I'm just holding the torch for you to help you find the pathway. I want to touch on the forward to the first edition real quick. In the first paragraph, and yeah, they rounded the number up to 100, but when they first started writing the book, there were about 75 people. Started out with 46, right around 75. There were some relapses. The number was really around 67 people. By the time the book was finished, there were 800 recovered alcoholics, and in 10 months' time of the book being on the world stage, there became 8,000 recovered alcoholics because of one thing: big book sponsorship. One drunk sitting down, taking another through the book. And I disagree with my dear friend who spoke earlier. I think we do need to sponsor like they sponsored in the 1930s and the 1940s. Patting somebody on the head, patting them on the shoulder, patting them on the ass and saying, "It's okay, you'll do it when you're ready," does not serve anyone. It will keep the alcoholic sick. If you don't want what I have, that's fine. You don't have to. Some days I don't want what I have. But here's what I do know how to do, is take another alcoholic through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you want permanent lasting recovery, I'll help you do that. And if you don't want that, that's fine. You know, maybe you got a few drinks left inside you. And I don't say that to push anybody out the door, because I want all of you here. I say that because it's the truth about our disease. So, in that forward to the first edition, in that first paragraph, it tells us why they went to the trouble, who wrote the book, what they were going to show us. The main purpose of this book is to help others to recover. What is recovery? Recovered from what? The seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. You know, the big controversy, I'm a recovering alcoholic, I'm a recovered alcoholic. In the book Alcoholics Anonymous, it mentions recovering one time. It mentions recovery one time. And yet it uses the word recovered over 33 times. I think they're trying to emphasize that I become recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Oh, and by the way, please don't take my enthusiasm for anything other than passion, because I'm passionate about this program. It also tells us in that first paragraph that this program is also, and this book is for the people who love us, the people we love, and in our families and homes. That's really important. Then it moves on to that what we do is an avocation, and it tells us the principle of anonymity. Anonymity meant something different then than it does today. Lisa, excellent job on Tradition 11 tonight. But then there were too few, and they still had to carry on their professional lives. If I would have had Georgina, Linda, Larry, Stephanie calling me while I was down at the hardware store counting nails, one nail at a time, in 1939, I probably wouldn't have had a job very long. Today I drive a big truck. I can take your call 24 hours a day. Society has changed. Does not mean that our books should change. So anonymity had a little bit more of a different. However, what they did in this was before Tradition 11 was ever written, Bill didn't start writing the traditions until 1946. So 9 years prior to that, they're bringing the idea of Tradition 11 into the forward to the first edition. And they also mention the respect for the press, of what they asked the press to do. And when we publicly speak, omit our names and just identify as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what does that keep us away from? It keeps us away from grandiosity. That's important. There's something else very, very important that this brings into on the last page, XIV. It brings in what is foundational to our preamble. No dues or fees whatsoever. Brings in the foundation of our third tradition. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. So honest is one of the changes. Honest was taken out, and today it says desire to stop drinking. Because by the time we get to Alcoholics Anonymous, we're so trashed in our lives, we have no idea what honesty really is until we start into the steps. The other thing that I think is very important here. We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from the book, particularly those who have commenced to work with others. That's talking sponsorship right there, even though it doesn't use the word sponsorship. One alcoholic sitting down with another. Now, my sponsor used to do things to me, like say, he never said, Jamie, go read the book. He said, the book says something to the effect. Well, he challenged my curious mind, so I went to look to see what the book had to actually say. You know what? He was right. He was pretty much on track. That's why I continue to study the book. The other thing that it says is inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcomed. We cooperate with anyone, and that right there shows our inclusivity in the world. In the foreword to the second edition, which will be on next week, so I won't give too much of it away, but it will talk about different cultures that are included. Okay, and even in tonight, when it talked about all formats, did you know that Alcoholics Anonymous is in over 180 countries in the world? Our book is translated into over 100 different languages. And I just went to a post-conference report, and our book has been translated into 3 more languages in 3 different countries. Some of them in African nations, Far Eastern nations. That's big stuff, folks. That's big stuff. And I'll close with this. If we don't continue to teach newcomers the importance of this, and old-timers too, because there's a whole lot of old-timers suffering from untreated alcoholism, one day we will be in danger of the non-existence of Alcoholics Anonymous, because the newcomer is the lifeblood that courses through the veins of the old-timer. An old-timer, if you ain't following the book, pray on it. Thanks, I love y'all. Stephanie, come on in.
I have a real quick question. I think Linda and I got confused at the same spot. I don't know if William, what edition he's reading, but what he said about spiritual experience, it's not in my book.
It might not. It might not be. So.
Yeah, it wasn't in my book either.
Move the mouse where you want it, Trish.
Yeah.
Can't use that mouse. I hate that mouse.
So,
That's why I got confused.
okay, hang on. So we covered that in. Come on, Speedy Eyes, hang on. We have the answer for you in just a second. This one here?
Yep.
Okay, so we made a comment. In other printings of the Big Book, this section reads, the second edition added the appendices, the 12 traditions, and the directions for getting in touch with AA, while the first 164 has been left largely untouched. It does not mean that there may not be some differences in the preferences and forwards. So that goes back to that 401 changes that I was talking about, which might be punctuation, stylistic changes, to bring the language into the day. You know, I spoke the language of the gutter for most of my life, and I can still be very fluent in it. but today I try and speak the language of the heart. Do you notice in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's not any foul language whatsoever used. So, does that answer your question, Steph?
Yeah, I just, like I said, I didn't know if it was a different edition or
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a different edition. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Like a lot that y'all was reading, it wasn't in my book.
Right.
Some of the stuff that I was reading, was not in your book.
That's why, in a general rule for this book study, we use 4th editions.
Okay, good.
We mail out 4th editions. However, for example, if you have a 3rd edition, when we get into the doctor's opinion here in a couple of weeks, what we are reading is out the page number in the 4th edition, but if you're in the 3rd edition, it will be 1 page back. Because there's a 1 page different. And the reason for that is because of all of the Roman numeral stuff. In the first printing of the 1st edition, the doctor's opinion started on page 1. There were no Roman numerals, so that's another thing that got added. I will touch on this real quick too. Forward of the 4th edition came out in 2001, November 2001, for its first printing, but there was a time, probably about 12-15 years ago, that General Service decided to make some changes in 2 or 3 or 4 sentences and reword them. And you know what they did, folks? They did it without the group's approval, without the fellowship's approval. And I'm sitting in a book study one night, and it's like, my book doesn't say that, and a whole bunch of other people's book didn't say that. There's about 3,000 copies out like that. And the reason for that is General Service Office got spanked real good for doing that.
Wow.
Because they are not supposed to make those changes without Art's approval and Linda's approval and Stephanie's approval and all of us. The group is the voice of Alcoholics Anonymous, not what 23 people think.
I know that one time and it's something that's going on, and our GSR sent us a form, and we had to go through it and read it, because there's certain things they're voting on. So I think this is like what you're saying, and it goes out to all the groups. Every group is registered. It has a number. If it's registered, you're not going to get it, but if you have a GSR and they're attending those GSRs, there's questionnaires. And I guess that's exactly what you're saying, yeah.
Which is why the service structure is so important. If you just want to be a meeting, folks, it's fine to just be a meeting. But if you're going to be a group, be both feet in and be a group. Terry, where are you? Did you bounce out already? Trish.
Yes.
How about you close us out?
Let me grab my book, because you don't have it up there.
Extra long meeting tonight, but glad you are all
It
here.
was interesting. It was very interesting.
Educational.
Hey,
Yes,
that's
yes,
what we
right.
do. Here's the deal, folks. This is a teaching group. This is a teaching group. So as we move into the new year, and I'm probably going to put this into the focus. Okay. If you're gonna raise your hand and be a reader, follow along. If you're gonna raise your hand and be a reader, if you have a choice between answering your cell phone or reading, choose one. If you're going to answer your cell phone or answer text, lower your hand. We won't call on you. Take the call. It's obviously more important. And I'm not saying that to be a jackass. But what it does is it disrupts the flow of the meeting. Okay, Trish, read us out.
From page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you, Trish. And we will close out in our normal Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group style. This is us giving you a hug, folks. This is us being connected, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. I want to keep something in mind with the importance of what we read tonight. There will be 263 alcoholics who die in the United States tonight. 95,000 throughout the year, 3 million worldwide, and you know what? There's a percentage of them that have been to Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't want what we have. Please keep coming back and share this message. After a moment of silence for those who are sick and suffering, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moments. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks, everybody. Love y'all.
Great meeting. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thanks, everybody.
Jamie, is that your